Let's add email verification so that when user registers, we send them an email asking to click on some sort of link to verify their account. We'll be using MailHog, which is an email testing tool meant for local environments, and Symfony Mailer package to actually send the emails. We already covered that in the third section of this series, I think lesson 3.13, so check it out if you need a refresher. I'm going to be setting it up fairly quickly without going in a lot of detail because we already covered it in that video. So I have this MailHog container already added to the docker compose.yml file. I did this behind the scenes. So make sure to build your containers if you're using Docker. If you're not using Docker, then you can follow the instructions in the MailHog to install it manually. Please note that the MailHog is not a requirement. There are plenty of other tools available that you can use with both free and paid options, and MailTrap is one of them. So if you're having trouble setting up the MailHog or don't want to use it, try another tool like MailTrap. Alright, so next thing that we need to do is that we need to pull in the Symfony mailer. So I'm going to composer require it, Symfony/mailer. And then we need to configure this. So let's open the container bindings. And in here, we're going to add a new entry for the mailer interface. So let's do mailer interface from the Symfony component. And in here, we'll simply return a new mailer instance. The mailer class expects transport object as an argument in the constructor. We can create the transport from DSN. So we can do something like transport equals transport from DSN. And we can pass the DSN string as an argument here. Now we can store the DSN in environment variable or the config and then get it from the config. So we can actually inject our config class as a dependency here. And then we'll do config get something like mailer.dsn. Let's import these classes here and let's pass the transport as an argument. And let's add the mailer.dsn option in our configuration. So let's open app.php. Let's add a new option here. We'll have mailer, which is an array, and this will have DSN element, and we'll get the DSN from the environment variable. So we'll do mailer_DSN, and let's also add another field here to store the default from email address that we're going to use for our emails. So we'll store from, and we'll also get that from the environment variable. So we'll do mailer from. Make sure to add mailer DSN and mailer from to your env file with the appropriate values. You can see the DSN examples in the Symfony mailer documentation, but for MailHog, it's just smtp://mailhog:1025. If this is all new to you, refer back to lesson 3.13 because we go over this in more detail there. Alright, so the next step is to prepare and send an email whenever user registers. If we open our auth class and we scroll down, we have this register method right here where we create the user and we log the user in. So in here, right after logging the user in or right before logging the user in, we can send an email to the user asking them to verify the email. The thing is, I don't want to build the email message object within our auth class because that's going to bloat this method and bloat this class. Instead, I want to have a dedicated email classes that will handle the email preparation and sending. In here, I simply want to call some sort of send method on some kind of object. So something like this sign up email send and pass the user email as an argument. This way, we're abstracting away all the email sending logic within this sign up email object, whatever that is. So let's go to our constructor and let's inject that object. So we'll do private read-only sign up email, and we need to create this class. Let's create this class within a new namespace and a new folder called mail. So we'll do app mail. Let's create a new method here called send. So let's scroll down in here and we'll just simply create this method. And this is not going to return anything. So let's add void as the return type. This will be email. And let's implement our email sending logic. So first thing that we need to do is that we need to create the email message object. We're going to be using the templated emails so that we can use twig template as our email template instead of putting some HTML in our PHP code. So we'll instantiate the templated email object here. So we'll do new templated email. And if we inspect this class, we see that it just extends the regular email class and provides some additional functionality. So let's go back to the sign up email and set some of the options. First, we're going to set the from address, which we're going to get from the config. Because remember, we're storing the default from address in our configuration right here. So let's inject the config in our constructor. So we'll add it here. We'll do private read-only config. Then let's set the to email address wherever we're sending the email. And to is going to be our email basically. So let's actually rename this to and we'll pass it this way. Then we need to set the subject. So we'll do subject, something like welcome to Xpennies. Then we need to set the HTML template. So we'll do HTML template. And instead of passing the HTML directly in here, we're just going to pass the path to our Twig template. So we'll do emails/signup HTML Twig. Then we should set the context that will basically replace the placeholders in our template. So we'll do context and pass an array containing the list of placeholders. For now, I'm going to set it to empty array and then we'll fill it in. So let's create this template first. So I'm going to open our views and we'll create a new directory here called emails. And within the emails, we'll create a new template called signup html.twig. Now, I'm not going to spend time designing the email for this, so we're just going to put in some basic text. So we have, thank you for signing up to Xpennies. Please click on this link to activate your account. The link is valid until expiration date. So we have two placeholders here. We have the expiration date and activation link. So we need to provide values for these variables, and we can do that within this context array in here. I'm going to fill them in later, so for now I'm just going to set them to some default values. So the activation link, we'll set it to this, and the expiration date, we'll set it to 30 minutes in the future. So the link should only be active for 30 minutes. All right, so now that we have the email message, we need to send it out using the mailer object. So we can inject the mailer interface here. So we'll do private read-only mailer interface, mailer, and then we can do this mailer send and pass the message as an argument. Now, this won't exactly work because we're not using Symfony framework and not everything is configured for us. The Twig template needs to be actually rendered into a string. This usually happens automatically by Symfony via event and dispatcher, but since we're not using that and we're not instantiating the mailer object with the dispatcher, it won't render the Twig template automatically. Easy fix for that is to simply render the message before sending it ourselves. We can do that by injecting the body renderer interface into the constructor. So we'll do private read-only body renderer interface, and we'll call this renderer. And then right before sending the email, we can do this renderer render message. And then we need to add an entry in our container bindings for body renderer interface. So let's open container bindings. We'll add an entry here for body renderer interface, and this is simply going to return a new instance of body renderer. So we'll do return new body renderer, and this object expects Twig environment as an argument in the constructor, and we already have the Twig available in our container, so we can get that from the container and get the environment from it. So we can inject Twig here as an argument, and then we'll do Twig get environment to get the environment object. Let's import this, and now we should be able to test this out. So let's open the browser, click on sign up, let's fill in the form, click register. The user has been registered successfully. Let's open MailHog, which is on port 8025, and we see that the email was sent successfully. Alright, so now we should let the user know somehow in the UI that their account has not been activated yet, and don't let them use the system until they verify the email. We need to do a few things to make that work. First, we need to store some sort of flag or a date column in the user's table to determine if user is active or not. I'm going to go with the date field, so let's open the user model. We're going to add a new date time field here called verified at. And this will have the name of verified underscore at. We'll make it nullable by default, and that means we need to make this nullable here as well. And let's generate the getter for this. So we'll add getter, And next we need to run the diff command and actually run the migration to add this column to the users table. So we'll do PHP xpennies diff. This has generated the migration. Let's do PHP xpennies migrate, and that worked. Next we need to create the middleware to check if the user has verified email or not, and if not, then we need to redirect the user to some page letting them know that they need to verify the email. So let's open the middleware directory. Let's create a new middleware here called verify email middleware. This middleware needs to implement the middleware interface, and we need to provide the implementation for the process method. In here we need to do something like if user has the get verified at date, that means the user has verified the account. Otherwise, if there is no verified at date, then we need to do the redirect. We can grab the user instance from the request object because we'll register this middleware after the auth middleware, which means that it will add the user object to the request. So we'll do user equals request get attribute user. And if for some reason the user is not set on the request, then we can assume that user has not verified email and still redirect them to some sort of verify page. So if we have the verified at date, then we'll simply continue handling our requests. Otherwise, we need to create a redirect response. So we'll do this response factory, create response, and we'll inject the response factory in a second. The response will have 302 status code with header, location, and the location will be /verify or something like that. So let's inject the response factory in the constructor here. So we'll do private read-only response factory interface response factory. And now let's create this route so that we can do the redirect. So let's open our web.php. And a quick note here, I cleaned this file up a little bit behind the scenes by grouping the routes by middleware. So we have these routes grouped by the auth middleware. We have these routes grouped by the guest middleware. And we have this logout route that is also grouped by the auth middleware. We can add our verify route within this group and add the verify middleware to the above group. That way this group does not have the verify email middleware attached to them. That's why I separated the logout into its own group. So we'll duplicate this. It's going to be get request to verify, and we'll create a new controller called verify controller, and this will be index. And in here we'll simply add the verify email middleware. Let's import that. Let's create this controller within the controller's namespace. Let's create the index method, and this will render some sort of twig template that will let the user know that they need to verify the email. So let's do return this twig render. We'll pass the response and maybe auth verify.twig template. So we need to create this template and we need to inject the twig instance here. So we'll do private read-only twig, and let's also accept the response as an argument here. So we need response interface response. Let's add the return type, and let's create this template. So let's open the auth directory. We'll add the new verify twig template, and I'm going to paste in a very generic template here. I'm not going to spend time writing it by hand. The one thing to notice here is that this template does not extend the auth layout, it extends the regular basic layout. That way user can still see the pages but won't be able to click into them to see the content because it will just render this body. But at least they will be able to log out or change password or whatever the options will provide them in the navigation menu. Alright, so let's test this out now. Let's go back to the browser. I'm going to refresh the page. And as you can see, I am redirected to a page letting me know that I need to check my email to activate the account. I can click into transactions, categories, but I'm still seeing the same message. I can, however, log out and this will work. Let's register another user to make sure. Click register, and sure enough, we're being redirected to the verify page. Great, so the next step is to get the activation and verification logic built out. Basically, we need to fill in those placeholders properly, the actual link that the user can click in the email and verify their account. We're going to do that in the next video. So thank you so much for watching. Click the like button if you enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Until next time, happy coding.